Okay, welcome everybody to, what is it, the 9th, I believe, ENSO seminar. We're going to do our usual thing of waiting for 4 or 5 minutes to let people find the stream and everything. And I've got a little welcome slide that I can put up here to help you find your way to the part of this presentation you want to be part of. So let's see, I can present here. Marek, can you, or Maud, can you confirm that I'm sharing the screen successfully?
Yeah,
not
I can
yet.
see you.
Okay, great.
Oh, no, I
We're not
can't see
seeing
the
the
slide.
slide
I
yet.
can only see you.
Oh, I haven't clicked screen share. That, need to do that. Entire screen share.
Bingo.
Okay, great. So it's another ENSO seminar we got going on here, and you can join and participate in the session to ask questions and so on. The easiest way to do that, you have 2 options. You can either email me, or even easier than that, you can go to the event page or the ENSO seminar page, and on either of those pages there's a link which you can click on that will take you straight to the live session that we're in now. And if you're in this live session, then you'll be able to talk, and we'll be able to hear you, importantly, and you can ask questions at the end of Mog's presentation. But if you don't want to do that, or you can't do that, I know there's some people planning on tuning in from the East Coast of the States, and it's 5 o'clock in the morning there, so probably a bit early for you there. But if you want to participate after the fact, you can go to the ENSO Seminars website, click on the title of the current talk, then scroll down on that page, and there is the discussion forum where you can ask questions. And you can do that during the seminar now, and I'll look for questions at the end to pass on to Mog in the live session, or you can just write them there later after you've watched this seminar, and hopefully we can get Mog to respond to those questions in the forum later today or in the next few days or something like that. So that's that, and we're going to give it another good couple minutes for other people to join. The problem with me screen sharing this slide is I need to occasionally check over here to see if we have had other people join. We have. Hi, Hannah.
Hello.
Cool, great, awesome, great to have you here. And we have M here. Do I know you, M? Are you a guest here? Does anybody know M?
M. Roberts, I don't know him. Okay,
well, welcome. We'll give it another couple minutes, and then I'll put the screen over onto your screen there, Mog, and we'll get going. It looks like Fred is going to make it.
Excellent, okay.
Okay. So I'm going to now switch the screen over to your side there, Mog, if you're ready, if you want to set up your slides, screen share, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, cool.
You're currently based at Tübingen, Mog, isn't that right?
Yes, I am at Tübingen for this year. Shall I put the slides on straight away now?
Sure, if you like. Yeah, why not?
Okay. Does that work?
Yep, looks good from my end. And what I'll do is I'll let everybody, for now, because we have about 5 people here total, everybody can sort of mute themselves. If there's any sort of talking or noise, then I might mute some of you and unmute you.
You have all the power.
I won't mute you, Mog, don't worry, no matter what.
You can if you get fed up, that's fine.
But with no further ado, it's my pleasure to give the floor to Mog Stapleton, who is actually one of the people that was present when we first got this idea of putting the ENSO seminars together off the ground at a conference in London. And it's a real pleasure to have Mog here giving this presentation today on the heart of self-awareness. So should be about a 20-25-minute talk, Mog. Does that sound about right?
Yep, hopefully.
Great, and then we'll have some questions and time for comments and stuff afterwards. So take it away. Thanks a lot for being up for doing this.
Great, thank you. Yeah, to both you and Marek for giving me the opportunity to talk through some of this, some of my current work with you, and for setting up this initiative. You guys actually made it happen. It's not just drunken chat anymore. So yeah, it's really great to have an activist-friendly forum to discuss work. But having said that, this talk isn't directly an activist, but rather what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to draw on some activist-friendly themes in order to try and understand what's going on in the interoception literature a bit better, and to understand what that can tell us about the contribution of the body to our experience. So I guess from this forum, what I'd be particularly interested in, if you have any suggestions, is how to develop the final section, because I'm starting to go further into the phenomenological approaches to the body, which is a newer area for me. So my overarching research question is, what are the kinds of contribution that the body makes to our experience? And my particular interest is in the GUI body, so the part which includes parts of the body from which we receive interoceptive, so homeostatic, visceral information, rather than proprioceptive or kinesthetic information. And the direction which I'm going is working towards understanding what role this GUI body plays in the different kinds of experience of anxiety. So there's good reason from neurophysiology to think that there is a contribution that the body makes to experience. So Craig, who's like the interoception king, has shown the afferent homeostatic information, so information from the visceral body, feeds in at several levels of processing, including at the insula. And in primates, which is these red lines here, this information is re-represented in the right anterior insula, which is correlated with subjective feelings. So does this information contribute to experience? Hugo Critchley, who is another king of interoception, has argued that the anterior insula is not only the neuroanatomical substrate for subjective feeling states, but it's also the conscious representation of the self. It underlies the conscious representation of the self. And Craig makes an even stronger claim about this. So he argues that the kind of studies that, on interoception associate the anterior insular cortex not just with all subjective feelings, but also with attention, cognitive choices and intentions, music, time perception, and unmistakably awareness of sensations and movements, of visual and auditory percepts, of the visual image of the self, of the reliability of sensory images and subjective expectations, and of the trustworthiness of other individuals. And he then generates the opinion that this accumulated evidence compels the hypothesis that the anterior insular cortex engenders human awareness. So of course, activists aren't going to be inclined towards considering any one area of the brain as a neural correlate of subjectivity. But nevertheless, I think that the associations that they're showing do give us good reason to think that interoceptive information is playing a role in experience in perhaps a variety of ways. But the question is, what is the nature of this experience? So to understand this, I want to take a look at some of the recent behavioral work on interoception. So behavioral studies on interoceptive awareness measure the experience of bodily feelings by measuring how well subjects can perceive their heartbeat. So they do a heartbeat task by asking people to not touch their own body and to just concentrate on their heartbeat and count their heartbeats for a certain period of time. And then they compare this to the actual amount of heartbeats that have gone on during that time. And if you're good at counting heartbeats, you're high in interoceptive awareness, and if you're bad at counting heartbeats, you're low in interoceptive awareness. So there's reason to think that interoceptive awareness is related to our experience because, for example, anxiety disorders are correlated with high interoceptive awareness, so good at counting heartbeats, and alexithymia, which is problems in identifying and describing one's feelings, are correlated with low interoceptive awareness. So what should we conclude from this? We could conclude that there's one set of internal bodily information that interoceptive awareness tracks, and this information is experienced at greater or lesser intensity. So either because it's louder or because we're more sensitive to it. So let's call this the volume model, whereby if the volume is greater on the bodily feelings, you have a more intense and then it maps onto, for example, the arousal dimension of core affects that Lisa Feldman-Barrett discusses. But I think that there are reasons not to accept the volume model, even though it might seem to be the obvious interpretation. So there are three reasons that I can think of. Firstly, because alexithymia is not the same as anhedonia. So alexithymia is difficulty in identifying and describing one's feelings, whereas anhedonia is having less feelings. So the association between alexithymia and low interoceptive awareness doesn't by itself imply a lack of feelings. It only implies that they might not be clearly reportable for whatever reason. So the second reason I think that the volume model interpretation might not be the right way to think about things is what I call the anorexia anxiety. And this is the worry that anorexia and other conditions that are associated with alexithymia are associated with low interoceptive awareness, yet these commonly co-occur with anxiety disorders, and anxiety is correlated or associated with high interoceptive awareness. So presumably the fact that anxiety disorders are disorders means that the experience is intense, and therefore that those with anorexia are indeed experiencing intense feelings despite the fact that they're bad at accurately perceiving them. And this brings into doubt whether our perception of bodily information really is contributing to our experience in the way that might seem obvious. And the third reason to doubt this volume model interpretation is recent research that shows that judging yourself to be good at interoceptive awareness and therefore presumably experiencing bodily feelings intensely doesn't always correlate with actual accuracy in perceiving those feelings. And this research has been done by Sarah Garfinkel and colleagues at Sussex, along with Hugo Critchley. So they show that the two typical measures of interoceptive awareness that are used by interoception researchers don't always correlate. So you can think that you're good at perceiving bodily processes, but actually be really rubbish at it. So, for example, interoceptive accuracy, that's the measure. It's just the accuracy with which you perceive your heartbeats on the heartbeat task. And interoceptive sensibility is measured by subjective self-report, and it tracks how much you feel. How much you feel feeling-y. So because these interoceptive accuracy and interoceptive sensibility don't always correlate, you might think that you're really good at perceiving your internal body, but on doing the heartbeat task, turn out that you're actually really rubbish at doing it. They proposed a new dimension of metacognitive awareness. And that's a measure of how good you are at knowing how good you are at perceiving interoceptive information. But it seems clear to me that if people are self-reporting bodily feelings, they're not somehow deluded, and so they are actually tracking something. It's not what the heartbeat task is tracking. So this gives us reason to think that there are two streams of bodily information. There are bodily feelings that are being tracked by interoceptive accuracy, and some kind of, whatever kind of bodily feelings tracked by interoceptive sensibility. And both of these measures you can up the volume or lower the volume on on either or both. So although both interoceptive accuracy and interoceptive sensibility are both measuring conscious feelings of the body, given that sometimes people are good at one and bad at the other, this indicates that the measures are tracking different things, or at least that's what I want to propose. And we can use this to explain the anorexia anxiety by using my interpretation of Garfinkel's distinction between interoceptive accuracy and interoceptive sensibility. We can posit at least two kinds of anxiety, one kind of anxiety that's being tracked by interoceptive accuracy and one being tracked by interoceptive sensibility. But how should we understand the different nature of bodily experience in each? In order to do this, I propose turning to phenomenology. So there's a classical distinction, which I think everyone in the enactive tradition knows, between the body as object and the body as subject. So the body as object is the experience of the body, kind of a reflective experience, the Körper, and the body as subject, the experiencing the world through the body in a pre-reflective way, so the experience of the living body, the life. So it seems right that interoceptive awareness is tracking the body as object, as when you count your heartbeats, you're very much focusing on the feelings of the heart beating in your chest. But interoceptive sensibility seems to also be tracking feelings of the body, because they're so salient that it seems that we should consider them to be reflective feelings. However, there's been a line of research that's arguing that bodily feelings being salient or at the forefront of awareness doesn't necessarily make them reflective. So Dorothée Legrand has worked through this in a really nice way by arguing that the body is subject, so the body through which we experience the world, can nevertheless be very present in experience, and this is the case in the performative body as opposed to the transparent body. So the performative body is how, for example, professional dancers experience their body while dancing. They're not considering it reflectively in the way that awkward teenagers at the school disco do or something, but rather they're experiencing the world through it. But nevertheless, it doesn't recede from experience in the way that bodily experience does when we automatically perform habitual tasks. Instead, the body is experienced as very present. It's present at the forefront of experience. So Colombetti has developed this idea for bodily feelings and emotions, and she proposes that both the body as object and the body as subject can be experienced in two ways. Either at the foreground, so attentively, where they're felt as very present, or at the background, pre-attentively, where they're felt as less present. So, applying Colombetti's framework to this problem, we can see that just because interoceptive sensitivity is tracking bodily feelings that feel salient, doesn't mean that they're feelings of the body as object. They might be tracking feelings of the body as subject, but in a way felt as very, very present, so attentively or at the foreground of experience. So let me remind you of the problem, or what I think the problem is. So we have good reason to think that internally bodily information feeds into experience, but anxious feelings seem to occur in both high interoceptive awareness and low interoceptive awareness. And our measures of internal bodily feelings reveal that there are two kinds of bodily feeling at play. That measured by heartbeat tasks, so interoceptive accuracy, and that measured by questionnaires, self-report questionnaires, interoceptive sensitivity. And this suggests, I think, that anxiety in high and low interoceptive awareness cases might be grounded in different kinds of bodily feelings. And I'm suggesting that we have work in the phenomenology of feelings that can help us track the kinds of bodily feelings that are giving rise to these kinds of anxiety, and giving rise to the different results for different measures of bodily feelings. So a step towards a model of interoceptive feelings runs as follows. Some of our interoceptive information is experienced by us as feelings of the body, which is to say experiencing the body as object. And the heartbeat task that measures interoceptive accuracy is a paradigm example of this. Our focus is on the experience of the heartbeats. And being very good at this task, correlates highly with anxiety disorders, presumably because if your heart beats, or for some kind of story, like if your heartbeats increase and you can feel them very well, you will be more likely to feel in an aroused state, and so perhaps more likely to interpret these feelings as indicating threat or some such thing. But other interoceptive information is experienced by us pre-reflectively, in that we experience the world through it. But Legrand and Colombetti show us that this doesn't mean that this bodily information is transparent. It can be very salient to us, right at the foreground of experience. And I suggest that the bodily feelings that attract by the interoceptive sensibility measure are interoceptive feelings that are experienced in this way, not as object, but rather as subject. They're feelings through which we experience the world. Sometimes very strong and distressing feelings, which could explain why some badly on images of interoceptive accuracy. So to conclude, which was a bit faster than 20 minutes because I think I went through that a bit quickly, sorry. But anyway, I will conclude that interoceptive information is indeed contributing to self-awareness, but there might be different kinds of information, interoceptive information, that are contributing to different kinds of self-awareness. And if this model is right, it implies that we have reason to doubt that interoceptive, that the anterior insular cortex is the neuroanatomical substrate for all feelings of self, as per the interoceptive neuroscience suggestions, because it's activation in this area that's correlated with high IA, and the model that I've presented proposes that there are other feelings of self that aren't correlated with high IA. But as to yet, it's still an open question as to what the neural substrate of those feelings might be. And that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mark. Thank you. It's always the awkward thing about virtual seminars is the absence of applause after them, just despite the fact that people are there listening and paying attention.
If I could see Marek clapping. That's fine.
If I could ask all of the participants to unmute themselves so that you can ask questions when the time becomes available without much awkwardness. Thanks very much for that, Mog. This is very much not my area, so I'm sorry if I'm asking kind of an ignorant question to kick the questions off. But thinking about the, if you could also, Mog, turn on your image or turn off your screen share when you have a chance. Yes. If you want to. I guess you don't have to. But my question related to these questionnaires that you mentioned for the interoceptive sensitivity. Could you tell me just a little bit about what the kinds of questions are, like what it was that these questionnaires are sort of evaluating? Because I have a bit of a sense, you know, I think I actually participated in an early trial of the heartbeat sensitivity.
In which case you probably know more than me, because I haven't got hold of the questionnaire yet. That's my next step. So if you participated in that, what kind of questions were in it?
Well, I just participated in the heartbeat experiment, and it was just a matter of sitting down at a table and concentrating very hard on listening to my heartbeit and counting the beats. But
okay, that one.
Yeah, so that was for the interoceptive accuracy.
Yeah.
But there's these questionnaires for the interoceptive sensitivity, and I'm just trying to wrap my head around the difference between these two concepts. I understand that the sensitivity is sort of a meta-awareness. Is that correct?
No. Well, it depends what you mean by meta, but I guess so. So it's what you it's whether you would judge that you are, you know, you are feeling that you do have good access to your interoceptive information. So I don't know the particular questions, but what I've been working under the assumption of, and you're right, I should get hold of it. But what I've been so for example, oh yeah, you don't have the slides. Okay, so on slides on the slide where I put up Garfinkel et al.
If it's easy for you to, you can put the slides back up. Maybe it was premature to bring them down.
Yeah, they're more exciting than my head. Here we go. Okay. Can you see that? Is that
Yes.
up there?
Yeah.
Okay. So, so they give an example. To what extent do you believe you focus on and detect internal bodily sensations? So, so it really is just how you perceive yourself to be good at perceiving. So it very much. So when I've done little talks and I've sort of done a little version of the heartbeat perception task with people just doing it on themselves, people have been really surprised. Usually, people are surprised when they're really rubbish at that task. Obviously, I'm not sort of giving them the exact amount of heartbeats that they were actually doing, but I can give them a basic idea of how many they should have had. But yeah, quite often people think they really are, and I think they tend to be quite sort of, people who have a lot of feelings, and yet when they do this task, they turn out to be really rubbish. So it does seem clear to me that you might think that they're measuring the same thing. And I think for a while, interoception research was really using one or other measures. So there was a while where interoceptive accuracy, interoceptive sensitivity, and interoceptive sensibility were all being sort of conflated. The terms were being used to just talk about your perception of these interoceptive changes, but not relating it to a particular kind of task, which is one reason why Garfinkel and Critchley are doing really, really important work by separating out these particular dimensions.
Okay, interesting. Thanks for that. I'll open the floor now. If other people have questions, please feel free to speak up. Marek?
Thanks, Mog, for the talk. Some interesting issues, I think, popping up there, and one of the key questions I'd have, I suppose, would concern how these kind of neurological aspects to introspection link with
Interception. Not introspection.
Sorry, yes, introspection. Well,
everyone does that.
Yeah. So the interception, but I guess I think that those aspects of interoception will also be integrated in some way with the activity with the going on in the world too, right? So that introspection occurs, or interoception, sorry, occurs amidst a whole host of other ongoing activities, and that, I think the acknowledgement of that comes through in your use of the distinction between the body as object and body as subject. I guess what I'm curious about, and I just don't know the anxiety literature well enough, is the implication would be that you have different forms of anxiety that might arise under different in different kinds of circumstances, and that it would be experienced differently, and that if there are forms of anxiety that are primarily driven by interoceptive sensibility rather than interoceptive accuracy or awareness, that there'd be distinctions in the phenomenology associated with it, and that there might also be distinctions in the kinds of circumstances that tend to give rise to the experienced anxiety. And I guess I'm wondering if you have any anything that to say that might sort of directly address that, or if there's something in the anxiety literature that might address that. Although I know that there isn't a huge amount of the phenomenology of anxiety literature out there in and of itself.
Yeah, that's right. There isn't a huge amount, and that's something that I want to address. But I think you're exactly right. There are distinct kinds of anxiety, and I think that these kind of considerations really motivate thinking that there are different bodily processes going on in the different forms. So we know that pretty generally in anxiety, bodily processes are a common factor. So your experience of the bodily processes, whether that's interpreted as causing anxiety or as a result of the anxiety, or probably linking all together. So at the moment, my intuitions are towards interoceptive sensibility. If I'm right, that interoceptive sensibility is actually tracking some kind of bodily feelings. That these are the kind of bodily feelings that are probably giving rise to or playing a role in, so for example, generalized anxiety disorder. So generalized anxiety disorder goes with pretty much all of the anxiety disorders. If you have another anxiety disorder, you're very, very likely to also be diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. So I don't think it's the case that it's an either or, but rather that into or shaping a particular experience of the world. So obviously generalized anxiety disorder, that's very existential. So it's really shaping all of your experience of the world. Well, existential or pre-reflective. It's not clear. It's not quite clear yet how we should understand that. Whereas specific phobias and perhaps OCD and maybe not social phobia, but social anxiety. But yeah, let's stick with specific phobias, which also seem to be a kind of anxiety. That's more likely to be something that's going on with whatever is the interoceptive accuracy is measuring distortions of the bodily feelings also at this interoceptive sensibility level, or the bodily feelings the interoceptive sensibility is measuring. That's my intuition so far. I don't have research yet to back that up, but that's sort of my working hypothesis. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it does, in the sense that you have begun the taxonomy of forms of anxiety that might be associated with different aspects of interoception.
Exactly.
In essence, I know it's the rest of your research project to try and work through the implications of that. So it's a little bit mean to say, well, give me the answer to your research project now. But
yeah,
it
2
is.
years,
I
I'll
think
give you the answer.
I guess what I would be particularly curious about is the ways in which anxiety or different experiences that are all considered anxiety are associated with these different aspects of the whether it's the lived body or the object body. Really, because anxiety always involves, not always, except where it's existential anxiety, there's usually some sense of threat, and there's integration with and hypersensitivity to the environment. And the environment played no role in your talk. It was there implicitly in the notion of the body, but the lack of activity in which that sort of body was engaged left me kind of wondering where the world was. And I think there was kind of anchors to it in the sense of the body as subject and body as object, and in particular in reference to Legrand's work, where at least where performance was starting to come in, and how anxiety is integrated into a performance, whether it be an actual dance performance, for example, or just giving a talk, or working through your daily life, going for coffee, whatever it is. There's a sort of an important aspect to any given phenomenology that's there, and I'm curious as to whether the different forms of interoception.
Did we just lose Mark?
Yeah.
Did he destroy himself? Oh, no, and we never got the end of the question.
Got out of that one.
I think is that him coming back there?
I don't see any sign of that, but I hope you're right. Do you see a sign of him coming back?
I see a little Enzo seminar with the flashing green.
No, he's missing. He's missing.
Okay.
There we go.
Oh, there he is. There he is.
Popping back up. There you go,
We
Mark.
lost you. We lost you there for a second, Mark. If you could
Mark,
finish off your question.
Yeah,
I'm
the
back,
last
yeah,
sentence, the final sentence.
Oh no. Well, I think I was probably just repeating myself by the time I got to the final sentence. So
Okay.
it is just that sort of concern for the world and how anxiety is embedded in the worldly activity as well as within interoceptive aspects.
Yeah, I think that so that's definitely right, but that's it's a very different angle, and yeah, I think there's quite a lot of research that needs to be done. So yeah, it is exactly implicit in the discussion of Legrand's work and that whole sort of phenomenology tradition. So that's the direction in which I'm going sort of immediately. So yeah, if anyone has any suggestions of what literature I should read on that, I'd be really grateful for that. But yeah, so there's this experiencing the world through these kind of interoceptive feelings. I think is it plays a big role in our interaction with the environment. So, for example, we know from the affordance literature that if you're high in anxiety, you actually judge things to, for example, things that might actually be reachable, you might judge them to not be reachable. So it really plays a role in our perception of possibilities for action. So that's one direction in which to go there. And yeah, so playing out exactly, or sort of setting out exactly what the bodily influences are to what the internal bodily influences are to our perception of affordances, of those kind of classic kind of affordances, but then also the more sort of abstract feelings of possibility in the world that might shape sort of our ways of existing in the world, moods and feelings of being, and so on and so forth. That all needs to be cashed out too. Yeah, so you're right. I am completely missing that from this account, but that is a next step to consider exactly what role they play. So I mean, there's been some really nice work by Sanne Dahan and the group with which she was working in Amsterdam. I forget whether she's still there or whether she's moved on. Hannah might know, but
she's in Berlin now.
Oh, she's in Berlin. Everyone's going to Berlin. Yeah, so they've done really nice work on patients with obsessive compulsive disorder and mapping out the kind of affordances, the different kinds of affordances that sort of are present or experienced by people with obsessive compulsive disorders and different kinds of psychopathologies such as depression and so forth. So as far as I know, she hasn't looked at internal bodily information, but I haven't been in contact with her to ask her about that stuff. So this would feed in very, very nicely to that work that she's been doing.
It's interesting. I mean, one way to describe what you guys are talking about is the feedback between the person and the world in which they're interacting. But I was also wondering a little bit about the sort of the interoceptive feedback, and I was wondering if there's also been any research done there, where if somehow you could inhibit or prevent people from being able to feel their heartbeat or something like that, and the kinds of impact that blocking the feedback between their that's being given to them by their interoception. Because when you get nervous, your heart starts to beat and you get excited, and then you realize, oh my gosh, my heart's beating, I'm not breathing fast enough, and you start thinking about that and things like that. And so there's obviously feedback going on there, and I wonder if there's any research that's looking at that. Just an open question.
So there's definitely sort of feedback in the moment. You can obviously modulate it in the moment. It's usually assumed to be quite a stable trait. So if you have a tendency towards high IA, then yeah, you might deviate from it, but you'll tend to come back to it. I know that there was a lot of interest in that. So, for example, when the sort of mindfulness neuroscience initiative took off a bunch of years ago, people wondering whether what maybe one of the mechanisms of why mindfulness can help with things like anxiety is maybe you're increasing you're increasing your ability to feel internal bodily information in maybe a more precise way, so not in a way that you then over reflect or something like that. But I remember talking to Barney Dunn at a conference a couple of years ago, and he didn't seem to think that there was any evidence. It was a couple of years ago now, or a bunch of years ago now, but he didn't seem to think that there was any evidence that that's what mindfulness training is doing. I haven't looked at the more recent literature on that. But yeah, so he didn't seem to think that was what was going on. But nevertheless, we know that you can do biofeedback for a lot of processes. So yeah, it's not. I guess it's not clear as to whether you're gonna change the trait, or whether you're just gonna increase your ability to currently modulate your own responses to so you can learn if you start having high arousal, start having highly salient interoceptive information that corresponds to anxiety, you can then have techniques to make sure it doesn't go further, and bring yourself back down. That you wouldn't be that wouldn't be training your interoception as such. It would just be responding to having the skill to respond to your particular interoception, your interoceptive capabilities. But yeah, it's really interesting. I haven't looked as much at the biofeedback stuff and the interoceptive training as I mean to, but yeah, I really should, because there might be literature out there that disagrees with what I say. So
interesting. Cool. Thanks.
I have a suggestion. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Hey, Hannah, we can't see you.
No, I know, it's because I'm shy.
Oh, okay. Hi, nice to see you.
I thought I switched the camera on.
Oh, nice to see you.
Hello.
Hey.
There's research that might be relevant, I'm not sure, but there's a guy in Germany called Martin Grunwald who does research on, he's a haptics researcher, and I don't know how far he took this research, but he at some point studied people with anorexia, and he gave them a kind of diving suit to wear to try to give them better perception of their actual body. And I found one short paper where he just reports one case study. I can send you the link.
Cool. Thanks.
And yeah, I wonder how that relates. It also relates to Mark's question about the role of the environment. I was also wondering about that, how, because when I was trying to measure my heartbeat while you were talking, I was sitting very still, and I could measure it by the way my head moved, and I could see that because I was looking at a picture here that I have next to my computer. So I could measure it sort of feeling the heartbeat, but also in relation to what I could see of the environment, in relation to how my head moved by feeling the heartbeat, So
wow.
the information is, I wonder if we can really speak about interoception only completely cut off from the environment. Is that even possible? And what the inverse thing that Matthew suggested of cutting the link from interoception to, how would you do that? It's interesting, but how would you do that? And then you would have to also cut the link with the environment, I think, to do that.
Yeah. So I don't have any intention of cutting links to the environment in general, I guess. So I was trying to engage with the interoception literature sort of on its own terms. I agree. I think my intuitions probably mesh quite a lot with yours. Although I've never had someone say that before that they could measure their heartbeat by seeing how their head moved. That's really interesting. I wonder, maybe you have a really, really strong,
I don't know how accurate I was, but I suspect it was accurate because it was really a movement generated by my heart, which I could then see. So because of how it linked to environment, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a valid worry, and I mean, I have other worries about the particular heartbeat perception task anyway, whether it's really interception and in the way that I'm interested in interception, or whether it's rather kind of touch, just sort of more internal touch kind of thing, which can be classified as interception, but isn't really. So I mean, as you guys know, I'm more interested in the GUI stuff than touch and things like that. So yeah, I mean, there are worries about those kind of things. I mean, yeah, can you separate it from the environment? I guess I'm not interested in separating it out from the environment. I mean, that would be a worry for the scientists maybe who are doing the measuring, but I'm rather interested in what the contribution is to the way that we are experiencing the environment. So that would, then your kind of suggestions and comments, that wouldn't be a problem. It would just be considering in more detail exactly how to cash that out, in what way to. Or is your worry that the very way that I'm framing it as interoceptive information contributing to our experience, is your worry that that's already separated out, the me and the environment? Is that your worry?
I'm not sure that I have a worry, because I haven't really thought about these questions much, but yeah, it just seems to me difficult to talk about interoception as just something internal. But anyway, yeah.
So I definitely don't want it to be just internal. It's supposed to be tracking information that is going on in the body, but it should be an arrow going two ways. So it's tracking that, but it's shaping the whole way that we experience ourselves. So that's where the self-awareness bit is, but also the world and our interactions with others. So there are layers upon layers. And then the question is it just one kind of bodily information that is feeding into that? So I don't know how to visualize this, but pointing out to that, or are there different levels of information or different kinds of bodily information, and are they contributing in different ways to these different levels of way that experiencing the world and each other? And yeah, so that's the question. Yeah, and I guess that's where I'm sort of taking the more inactivist intuitions and bashing them into the interception literature. I guess that's what I'm probably doing. But yeah, so that's where I'm going exactly. So yeah, definitely it's a two-way. These two-way, they might track what's going on inside, but they're also shaping our experience in different ways. And I want to see, is it just one, or is it lots of different ones, and are they shaping our different sort of feelings in different ways? So existential feelings and feelings of beings and moods and emotions, but also just basic self-awareness, like body as subject, body as object. Yeah, these kind of distinctions. So I'm working. What I want to do is try and work out sort of a taxonomy, or map out what kind of different experiences there are, and then what different kinds of bodily contribution, there are to those, and whether that's just different in intensity, or whether it's actually different in kinds, and whether these happen at the same time or at different times successively.
I wonder if it would help to think about it, to use the term or the idea sense making to think about these things, because what you're talking about is, the way you talk about it sounds a little bit like you're dividing it up according to perhaps the cognitivist ideas of perception is different, emotion is different, awareness is different, and how do you fit them all together? But if you start from sense making, the question is, why am I feeling this now, here? And then what contributes to that? Does my heartbeat contribute to that? My awareness of my heartbeat, my accurate awareness of my heartbeat, or my subjective awareness of it, and in what way, and what difference does it make to how I interact with the world at this moment in this task? So that would be a different way of trying to put together all the things in terms of what is meaningful for the subject having these experiences. And then maybe the how to put them together can fall into place.
So my worry about doing that, so I really like the sense-making paradigm in general, and my worry about doing that was, so firstly, I want to make the research applicable, so I'm hesitant to just do it in terms of sense making. But maybe a more important worry is, and maybe one that you have a better idea of, then is how you can differentiate, or how you can track the contributions to the different kinds of experience in the world if you're just talking through sense making. Yeah, but I guess that's kind of what you do. So yeah, maybe I should just read your work more thoroughly to work out how to do that.
Yeah, it's not so much about what work I want to do with my work, or so, because that's a difficult question. I still don't know that we have really grasped that ourselves. But for that, we need to interact with empirical researchers and so on to figure out better how to do that. So yeah. I think there's something to be done.
I guess I'm probably frustrated by the having to work out how to do it, and so maybe I'm going for the easy option of let's grab some categories that we know are kind of useful and seem to track how we experience the world and how we interact with it, and let's have a look at what we can say about the bodily contribution now with those. So partly I guess that's
empirically isn't the way that you approach those questions kind of what we were already hinting at, of trying to figure out ways to interfere with the feedback loops, so to speak? So I don't know, looking at interoception when people are in sensory deprivation tanks as a way to separate them from their environment, and then looking at the extent to which the environment is contributing to their interoceptive accuracy or their interoceptive sensibility, if I'm remembering the word right.
Or deprivation tank is just another environment.
Hi, Fred.
Hi, Mark. There's no getting away from the environment. You put someone in a sensory deprivation tank, you just put them in a different environment. You know,
sure.
You didn't make the environment go away.
But at least, I mean, if you vary the environment, you at least get potential for parallax. So that you can't strip environment away, but by varying environments and observations systematically, you can watch what changes systematically, if anything. But I mean, I agree that it's all just one more environment, but the variation is valuable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the point wasn't so much the sensory deprivation tank as the interference and trying to, in the sort of inactivist kind of way, observe that there's these feedback loops there, and then try to break them temporarily or to get in their way to see what the relationship is in kind of a cybernetics-y kind of way.
Mm.
Yeah, good. So I think that work in the affordance literature can probably help without that kind of ideas. While you're not quite breaking the interaction with the environment, so work done by, for example, Marcello Cosentini has shown that you can sort of give a interfere with your perception of the affordances of an object by putting like a translucent screen in front of it. So even though you ought to just be perceiving that a cup is graspable, that's not what you're tracking anymore. So maybe that goes along towards those kind of lines. Does that seem right, Matthew?
Yeah, I mean, I guess another idea that popped into my head is thinking about the heartbeats. We already know to some extent that when you hear an accelerated heartbeat, it makes you more anxious, right? They do it all the time in horror films and everything.
Yeah.
Overdub some fast heartbeat. And again, it just reminds me of these other experiments where you have the mother and child, and you play a video of the mother to the child, and the child picks up on it right away, or you have a robot and you give as sensory input a recording of a previous robot's experience. There are all these ways to sort of interfere with the feedback, and I just think that has a lot of potential as an interesting route of investigation for interoception, and also in the context of anxiety as well. I mean, if playing an accelerated heartbeat makes people more nervous, if you've got people with anxiety orders, if you give them a soundtrack which is a really chilled out, deep breath, kind of slow heartbeat, does that help with the situation? I don't know.
Right, that's what you do with babies, right? Like if they're upset and you put them on you and try and slow your own heartbeat, and they sort of pick it up and get soothed by that. So yeah, I guess just find someone with a very calm temperament to hug or something. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's interesting. Thanks, Matthew.
Well, that's us.
I have to go.
Okay. Bye. I mean, that is us coming up on an hour now. We can chat some more if appropriate, but we can also continue the discussion in the forum online. So I don't. Does Hannah or Marek or M? Do any of you guys have any final questions?
Not immediately, no. But thanks, Mog, for the discussion.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mark. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that was cool and nice to see you guys. Nice to have virtual and activists.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you also, Hannah and Fred and Em, for coming in and participating. It's a little bit more lively here, having people chatting, and it just makes it a bit more fun for everybody, I think. And thanks a lot for presenting, Mog. It was a great talk. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for all the questions. That's that's made me think a lot. So thank you.
Great.
Cool.
Okay, until next time, viewers. Same bat channel, same bat.